Hey guys, welcome back to Mind What Matters. Today, you get the absolute gift of hearing from my bestie, Nikki DeLoach. And first off, I need to start today's episode by saying a few words about the way we ended our last episode, because I just listened to it on a run. And literally the last words I said were, "Summer's Eve douche." I know I douche to you. Do you remember the last thing you said to me when I was like, "Do you have any more questions for you?" And you go, "I do. I do." And it was like the way you said it was somehow what triggered my ADHD brain to like remember this commercial from 1994 or something.
No, I totally forgot that we spoke about douching as we got
that's
off.
how we ended the episode.
I
Anthony,
know,
literally,
you
thank you,
guys.
Anthony, our editor. You're a genius. The last words were, and that's where we're going to leave it on douching, everyone. Summer's Eve douche.
Listen, people aren't coming to listen to us because we're perfect. They're coming to listen to us
No.
because we're real. Okay.
What in the world? My brain, you guys. I'm going to apologize for it just every time, pretty much. But
Can you just update people just a little bit about what's happening, you guys? Like, I know if you're in Nashville or if you're in the South right now in the line of that storm, it has been brutal all across, especially Tennessee and a lot of those areas. So that means that Liz, where she lives, her people, trees are down, school is out.
it's a nightmare.
It's bad. It's
Absolute
a
nightmare.
nightmare. It's a really bad situation. So if you can help, there's a lot of organizations on the ground that are doing really good things to help people. And if you live there,
by the way, we are one of them. We are.
yes,
Mind What
and
Matters
we are
is
one
helping.
of them.
Yes, we are helping the Aloe family, which is a wonderful organization that helps our Hispanic friends. And goes without saying, we have a lot of friends that are very afraid to leave their freezing homes right now. So I would encourage anyone who's listening, if you want to make a donation to the Aloe family, they are doing incredible work. We can post a link to that on at the end of this episode. But yeah, it was wild. Thankfully, I was raised in Connecticut and grew up with losing power quite a lot and was very used to what that felt like. My mom and stepdad would go to work and I would not have school for a week and I'd be sitting at home in this freezing house. And so finally, by the time I hit high school and was smart enough to figure out what to do, I would like call inns around where we live. And by the time my mom got home from work on like a Wednesday, I would just have everyone's bag packed and be like, okay, well, we're leaving. So it's great you guys get to drive into Hartford for the day, but I'm tired of freezing. So we're going to a hotel. And so when the news, started predicting all of this, I was like, I've seen this show. I've been to this show too many times. I'm not participating. So we turned off our water. We drained the house and we left. Thankfully, we have not had to endure any hardship other than just, 3 kids in a rental house with 3 dogs and your 82-year-old father. But it has been easy on us, truly. And I feel kind of guilty about that. Not guilty enough to go back to a cold house, but it is truly, truly, truly so bad for so many. I think there were, at the height of it, 235,000 people without power in Nashville. I mean, that's a lot. That's like a fourth of our city. And it's just chaos. And I think there's a couple neighborhoods where the sewage is backing up because they run on grinder pumps and without power, they can't process the sewage. So it is messy. I'm actually kind of surprised that it hasn't made more of the national news. I guess there's so much else going on right now with other important ice that is way more important than the cold ice. So I'm fine with that. But it really has been a big deal. And to anybody that's listening who was affected, I'm so sorry, and check on your people, especially check on your elderly people. We have a next door neighbor that's really, not in great health. And I've been a nervous wreck about her all week, like begging other neighbors, to get her out of her house just because it's been so cold. I mean, that's the thing, everyone can lose power and it's uncomfortable. But if it's below freezing, then that starts to get dangerous. So anyway.
You bring up something that I think is really important because we have starting these conversations this year by saying what matters to you right now, right? And there's a lot of hard happening in our country, and there's a lot of things that matter to me. But what I think you're touching upon is community. And I think what we have gotten away from is the idea and the understanding of what community looks like and how we
Mhm.
show up, right, for our community and for our people. And, you know, we can't rely, I don't care where you fall on the political spectrum. I think we've gotten so comfortable on relying on, well, the
Mhm.
government will fix that, or the government will fix that, or this will happen. And now we're in a place where we don't have NIH grants for Alzheimer's and dementia. We don't have those extra grants for caregivers. We don't have those extra grants for hospitals and children's hospitals and for FEMA and for all of these things, the way that the government would show up in our lives, in these times. This is something that we're going to have to do as a community. And it's
Mhm.
something that we never should have let go of in the first place. Because the
Agreed.
moment we outsource our service-driven hearts, the moment we outsource our compassion and the way that we're showing up for, even if you just look at the people in your neighborhood, your neighbors, like you said, I keep checking on this woman, the elderly woman that lives next door, right? When we begin to lose touch, I remember growing up, I knew every neighbor. I knew every single
Same.
neighbor.
Yep.
And it was such a beautiful thing that I could literally go to any neighbor's door and knock on that door and be like, I need help, or, I'm lost, or, I need to get in touch with my mom or my dad. And I can name them to this day, all these decades later. I could tell you Jana Brown and Trevor Brown, who are living next door. Those were our neighborhood, friends. And then there was Dathan McIntosh and his family and Miss Pam Johnson. And like, I can tell you every single person in that neighborhood growing up to this day. And I feel like we are at a time where we are going to have to remember our sense of community across the board and how important it is to show up for our neighbors and for our people. We're back to that, like, I grew up in that casserole where we're in the South. We show up at the house and we show up with a casserole or honey baked ham and we
Mhm.
say, how can we help? Um, that's what we need to be bringing back. So that's something that's on my heart that I think is really mattering to me right now.
And it should matter to everybody. And I tell people this is like actually a huge pivotal point when I'm giving talks about caregiving and grief and all the things just from the nonprofit. Who is your community? Who's on your team? I'll never
Mm,
forget Travis Macy, our board member, talking about his team all the time and saying,
mm.
great job, team. Every time we do a podcast or every time we would do a board meeting, he'd always say, great job, team. And
I do
team
that
is
too.
something that, like, idea is so important to him. And it should be important to everyone because when the
That's right.
shit hits the fan and you're looking around, and this is such a
Which it
good
will for
segue
all
to
of us.
for all of us. This is a great segue for what we're about to talk about today. But like who is standing around you? Who can you depend on when the toughest of life's moments happen, because you cannot and should not do it alone. One of the last
Yeah.
questions you asked me last week was, who did you lean on and how did you accept
Mm.
help? And the truth is, I didn't do a good job of accepting. Really, Liz? Okay. Well,
You can't even say
we're
it.
gonna
You
we're
can't
gonna
even say
try that again. I can't even say it. See, that's even worse. I did a terrible job of accepting help. There we
Mm-hmm.
go, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Just a round of applause for a
So we're
moment.
here to tell you, don't make the mistakes we did.
Don't. No, don't do it. Like, there's such a better way to do caregiving. And when you let people in, as a reminder to one of the best things I think I've ever said, it was such a like pivotal moment in my own brain. And I heard you go, uh-huh, like you had been thinking it the
Mm-hmm.
whole time. But when I was like, and don't rob other people of having that moment of humanity to where maybe God is trying to work in their life and
That's
wanting
right.
to help and wanting to show
That's
love and
right.
wanting to help protect you. So don't rob somebody of that chance. If somebody says to you, hey, I see what you're going through and I want to help, let them.
Let
It's just
them.
such a huge, huge thing. Okay. So I told you guys that we were going to interview somebody else in between Nikki and I because we got in a little deep last week. But the truth is, I'm in Florida. I have no idea when I'm going to get power back. I went off in such a hurry. I left my planner. I left all of my contacts, everything, because I'm still a paper person. Yes, I'm a dinosaur.
I love it. She's an analog girl, and it's so
I
beautiful. I
am.
love it.
No, you know what I am? I'm a Franklin Covey lover. And I don't have a Franklin Covey planner anymore, but God help me when I did. I was the happiest human. I mean,
Wait, what's that
I would
called? Franklin
Franklin
Covey?
Covey. Oh, it was like a store in the mall. You could get a leather-bound little planner every hour,
gotta
every
find me
day,
one of
every
those.
month was broken out. I love to check a box. I love to check a box. When I have to input anything into this Apple phone, it makes me want to stab both of my eyes with a pencil. I hate it. I hate it. I have 3 paper calendars in my house and I live by them. Hunter was appalled. I was like, crap, I don't even know what I have in terms of meetings this week. And he's like, what do you mean? Are you talking in another language? What do you mean you don't know what meetings you have? And I was like, well, they're all on my calendar. And he's like, well, just pull up your phone. I was like, no, babe, my calendar at home. I left it on my desk. And he was like, I have no words for you. You're a sad person. You
No,
need
you're
help.
not. No, you're not. No, I love it. I love it.
But anyways, I had unfortunately I had 3 people that I really wanted to plug for this week. And given that I'm trapped and I have none of that, we're getting straight
Just
to
me.
Nikki. We're getting straight to Nikki. And she's going to have to be a 2-parter as well because she has 2 caregiving stories to tell. She has one caregiving story that revolves around her child, which is 180 degrees different than what her experience was from her father. And while there are parallels, mostly mostly behind the fact that she was doing them at the same time, they're different experiences. And I think that it goes without saying. Everyone knows how much I love Nikki. Everyone knows how grateful I am to have her friendship. I'm going to make you cry, so get your tissues out. I was thinking about it actually in listening back to our episode from last week on my run yesterday and today. I did it on over 2 days. And the way that you show up for others in your life, and you made a joke, there's not a lot of adults that I really respect anymore, and it's the truth. It's the same for me. And I think when you go through really hard things, your world shrinks a little bit, and that is sort of your take on things, because there's just no time for any BS. After you've gone through serious hardship, it's like, okay, only the real survives, and the fluff, it's got to go. It's got to go. There's just, you have no more room for it in your heart. You have no more room for it in your body. But, I joked that you were an orb, like superhuman, that you were not of this world and that there was metal somewhere in your body. But the truth is, Nikki, there's nobody more human than you. And I have learned so much from you in terms of compassion and grace, and not just for others, but for yourself. I was so hard on myself when I first got to know you.
You still
And
are.
the way that I have softened towards myself and the pressure that I put on top of myself is so much less because of you. And you don't do it in this in your face way. It's almost like you just infuse it into others when you're around them. And it doesn't come off as guys, I know you're talking to her, and you're listening to her, and you're hearing us talk, and you watch her in movies, and she seems so theatrical and she's so well spoken because of how well trained she is as an actor. I mean, she could probably talk in front of a camera for 24 hours and sound perfect the whole time. I'd be stuttering after about 45 minutes or something. But Nikki has this ability to just talk with such grace and such eloquence that anyone that's around her feels as though they're just the only person she's talking to, even if it's 25 people in that day or 25 people in that room. And you just have this incredible way of infusing your wisdom into others. And so
Mm.
I wanted to start today by just telling our listeners how freaking lucky they are that they are getting to listen
Mm.
to you speak, and they are getting to listen to these tidbits of wisdom that you throw out as easily as a pair of socks, going into the dirty clothes bin. It's just uncanny. Like, I was listening
Mm.
back and, here I am giving all this like great caregiving advice, and all of it was truthful, but then you'd come in with this one sentence and say something so spellbinding that there should be like a whole book written about it. And
Mm.
I just think that you have such a beautiful heart. You
Thank
went
you.
through something so unimaginable. And I said it last week, my mom nearly took me out, but the fact that you went through your dad and your child at one time is just such a testament to who you are. It's such a testament to the strength God gave you. Like, he truly put you here with such an insane purpose. It was not the Mickey Mouse Club. I can tell you that. It was not even Hallmark. It really, like, that's your day job. That is your day job, and you're great at it. But your
Thank you.
purpose here is the way that you change other people and the way that you love the people that are close to you. And I think that you're able to do that because you've been through such hard things. And because, oh gosh, here she's really going. I'm gonna have to like give her a minute. But it's just, I think you're so good at it because you've been through so
Thank you.
much. Your heart has
Thank
just
you.
been broken so many times. And instead of fill it with just rage and anger and just vitriol and just, anybody who's been through what you've been through could have closed it up and been like, screw everybody. I'm out for myself. And if anything, you've just done the exact opposite.
Thank
And
you.
you've softened at every turn. Now, I say that. Don't get in the way of one of her best friends because she will take you out
Oh,
or really cross her in any way.
listen, I
But
write murder mysteries for a living. I will figure.
she she
Don't
means it,
mess with me.
she's a good person. She's not a nice person. And I love when you said that because nice people do. They gaslight you. They can talk shit about you. They are not always there for you when the shit hits the fan.
They
But
can't be
good people
trusted.
are. Good people are. And you are the goodest of good. And I
Thank
want to
you, friend.
start our story or
Thank you.
your story of talking about I want to talk about Bennett first, if that's okay. We'll get
Yeah,
to
of
your dad next
course.
week.
Sweet
Um,
baby.
but I wanted to start with this quote from Rachel Remen. And it says that she's a physician and author. It says, "The willingness to be present with pain, with uncertainty, and with fear is the deepest expression of compassion." And
Yes.
you were able to
Yes.
do that. You were able to do that
Yes.
with your son. And I think for your whole family, I can take my glasses off now. Um, and I think that one of the things as caregivers of people who have children that are ill, um, that's a really hard thing to do is to
Oof.
stay in it. Because I used to volunteer at St. Jude. I know how hard it is to sit day after day in those hospitals bedside. I know you know, obviously, both from a professional standpoint and personal. Um, I've had children in the hospital and know how long those days are and just how long they drag and how hard it gets. And I think it would be really helpful to anybody who is going through an illness of a child to hear your story and to know how you handled it. Because at any turn, as much as none of us want to think about it, it's a possibility for all of us, right, who have kids.
Oh, yeah.
Something bad could happen. And so I think it's
Absolutely.
better to be prepared. And I think that what you went through in your story with Bennett is just, it's a great piece of wisdom to give others who either have been through it or are going through it now or potentially find themselves in a position of having to deal with an illness of a child or a loved one, later in life. So if you don't mind starting us out, like we all know
Yeah.
Bennett has a heart issue. We've talked a lot about that just here and there, but kind of describe how it happened and take us through the first surgery when he was a baby. And then again, when sort of everybody was telling you, oh, he's fine, he's fine. And
Hmm.
you
He
ultimately were
wasn't.
like, well, guess what? He's not. And true enough, you were right. And he wasn't. Um, And so really just give us a quick overview of what happened medically, and then I'll get into asking you
Mhm.
specific questions about your kind of experience.
Um, Thank you, honey. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for saying all of those words. It means
Oh my gosh. No, you're not allowed to cry. I can't make you cry. Don't make me cry.
it really means so much to me. It really means so much to me because, like, um,
You don't get that from enough people.
I also I care about humanity so much. Like, I care about, like, all of humanity. I have since I was a child, my mom would tell me stories of, like, being in preschool and, when kids didn't have crayons that I would, like, come home and be like, "Oh, I lost my crayons," and they'd have to buy me crayons, and then weeks later, my family realized that I was pretending to lose my crayons so that I could give the new crayons to kids that didn't have crayons.
Doesn't surprise me a bit.
And, and for that, I will say, I'm really lucky. I'm lucky that however I incarnated and however I came into this world, that I was able to come into it with a heart that cares a lot about people, and especially people who are vulnerable.
Mhm.
And I will also remember hearing about Jesus, and the first time I heard about Jesus in Bible study whenever I was, or Bible school or Sunday school when I was a kid, and remember being like, that is the way. How he is living his life, going towards the need, service driven. He didn't care what your religious background was. There was no political parties. He didn't care what you had done and the mistakes that you had made. He didn't care what society thought about the person thinking about the woman at the well. He didn't care. He just said, "What can I do and how can I serve you?" And I feel like it's hard enough to be a human being. It's just hard to come into this world, and I think we all have to think about, what is that deeper purpose for all of us? Like, yeah, sure, we have our job that we make our money doing. What is that deeper purpose of why we are here? And to think about that, like, why did you incarnate into this world, into this moment in time, to do what with your one precious life?
Mhm.
And I don't think we think about that enough. And the other thing I'll say is, you know, when I look at the world right now, and there is so much division, there's so much pain, and there's so much suffering, there's so much hate, and there's so much all of it. Um, I come at it from a different perspective. And what I mean by that is, it's trying to, like, my prayer every single morning after I thank God for, like, oxygen in my lungs and giving me another day in this world. And then I say, "God, please take over my eyes, my ears, my mouth, my heart, my mind. Take it over and let it be a reflection of you." And God is love.
Mhm.
At the core, God is love.
Mhm.
But I think sometimes why we struggle as a humanity being able to access just that simple thing of being able to say, well, these people get my love, but these people don't. That's not love. That's not the
Mhm.
unconditional love that Jesus talks about. And I think sometimes the reason we can't access that is because, Hudson, I'm just going to tell this little story that broke my heart last week. Our kids know what's happening in the world, a lot of them. I mean, my son doesn't have a phone, but a lot of friends at his school does. And he came home talking about a lot of the stuff that was happening, and he was very upset. And I do bedtime with my kids every night, and it's magic hour for me. And it's where they really want to talk because they don't want to go to sleep. And my son just looked at me and he said, "How did you guys let this happen?
Mm.
How did you let it get so bad?" And it just broke me because he's not talking about me specifically, because he knows how, active I am in so many different ways. in terms of giving back and showing up for community and all the things, he knows. And so he's like, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about like adults.
Mhm.
And I said, there's a lot of places I could have started with this, but I just simplified it down to, well, buddy, I think it's because for a very long time, people have just been asleep behind the wheel. We are not awake in our lives, right? And that is a whole spectrum from people who are working 3 jobs to pay rent and are just trying to get from one day to the next to the spectrum, all the way to the most privileged who are, just trying to accumulate as much wealth as possible for what, right? But
Mhm.
what is happening and what happens is like we allow the hard and the pain of our childhood or the trauma of our teenage years or 20s or whatever to just build up and build up and build up without
Mhm.
processing it, without sitting with it, without trying to soften it. And so what we are seeing is a lot of people projecting their pain onto others.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
our kids are suffering because of it. So that speaks to how I was able to be still with Bennett, how as a caregiver, I was able to be present with my dad without escaping pain. Because what I learned at a really young age was the pain and the hurt or the trauma or all of that, the abuse. When I made the most mistakes in my life and I was the most harmful to myself, and because I never wanted to hurt other people, I turned that pain against me. And yes, there were people that were, collateral damage inside of that. But when I was the most out of line with Jesus and my integrity was when I was trying to escape
Mhm.
the abuse that had happened to me as a child. I didn't want to sit with it. I didn't want to be with it. It was too painful. I wanted to die. I actively tried to commit suicide on several occasions. Luckily, I had some amazing earth angels that, saved me from myself. And
You've never told me that before.
yeah, and it was horrible. And I finally went into recovery in my early 20s. And that was such a godsend because that was the beginning to put to heal and to make myself whole again so that I could be present with pain, so that I could be still with that. And so I
Yeah,
think it's
how can we ask anybody to be present with pain when they're so filled with it themselves, they have no room for anymore?
that's it.
It's,
That's
it's so
it.
logical. So
That's
logical.
so it. And so it softens the heart when you look at people that you're like, oh my God, that person's doing a horrible thing. I also go, yes, but that's their pain talking. That is
Mhm.
their pain acting. So if we as a society can begin to sit with our pain and name it and let it be known to us and wrap love and compassion around it, then we can begin to sit with other people's pain. So, when I find by the time, and I had to preface that because by the time that I had found out about Bennett and I was pregnant with him, and this was in the spring of 2017, and in the same week, I found out about my dad's diagnosis and Bennett's diagnosis in the same week. And I knew that my dad was going to die. The question was, how long do we have? And I actually didn't know if my son was going to make it. By the time I got to that week in 2017, I had done a lot of work on myself. Now, I would continue to do a lot of work on myself after that week and years. Last year was one of the most transformational years of my life because I think we're never done working on ourselves. There's always stuff to sit with and process and work through. But by the time I got to that, I think the way that I was able to be with it is because I had practiced sitting with my pain a lot.
Talk
And
to me about that day in the hospital. Who came first, Bennett or your dad?
so, well, the diagnoses came at the same time in that week. And
But
then,
who
uh,
was first? Can you even remember?
um, yeah, because I mean, my dad, 3 years prior to that, I started ringing the bell that something was wrong with
Mhm.
him, right? 3 years prior. And then the Christmas before 2017, so the Christmas of 2016, I flew home with Hudson and Ryan to be there at Christmas. And that was when I basically confronted my mother and I said, um, this is not him being depressed. This is not him going through a midlife crisis. This is not something is wrong. And if you're not going to make that phone call, I will make that phone call. And she did. She picked up the phone. She called the Mayo Clinic. She booked an appointment. And it takes that long to get into these places. So by the
Right.
time the spring of 2020 or 2017 had come, they had gotten him in. They did an assessment. They got the results: Pick's disease, a rare and aggressive form of dementia. And so my dad and what was going on with him had come first. I had also gone through this with my grandfather who had vascular dementia. That was a very traumatic chunk of time where I did have to kind of intervene and jump into that. And I was pregnant with Hudson when that was happening. And um and so I had had one go round with this. And so I knew enough to know that what was happening to my dad, I mean, I had no idea it would be Alzheimer's. I thought he had a tumor in his brain because of the way that he was acting. But it was, in fact, Pick's disease. So then finding out about Bennett, I remember going into the office um, to get my, that 4D echocardiogram where you get to start to see everything. And they were spending a lot of time on the heart. And I knew instantly something was wrong. And this was basically the beginning of the gaslighting from the world. My husband, who was there, was like, "You're being crazy. Nothing's wrong. You're overreacting," like when the technician left the room. And I was like, "No, so I'm telling you right now, something is wrong with that heart. She spent a lot of time on the heart. I'm telling you." And the doctor came in and told us that he had transposition of the great arteries. Without immediate intervention, he wouldn't survive. But it wasn't just transposition. He had basically a collapse aorta. He had a hole in his heart, a VSD. And then we would come to learn with meeting with all of these different doctors to decide on which doctor, that there was a worst case scenario that could happen with this, but you wouldn't know about it until they opened him up. And there was one coronary artery, not two, and that one coronary artery in the wrong place. And that aspect of it made the danger and the risk of that specific surgery 10 times greater. So
So wait,
fast
hang on.
forward to,
You're like what, 30 weeks pregnant?
I'm in my 5th month.
Gosh, so
I'm
you
in my
went
5th
through
month.
basically the whole half of your pregnancy, knowing this, that
Hmm.
like the minute basically he's born, they're going to have to take him away, right?
Immediately. Immediately. Yeah.
So you might get
Uh-huh.
5 minutes with him,
Not,
like,
yeah.
and he would be taken from you. And so
Oh,
you went
yeah.
for 5 months like that. There's a lot of women who are told in their pregnancies, like, your child might not make it, you know,
Yeah.
it they might, and also there are cases where they know a child is going to die within minutes. And
Yes.
so the mom and father, or the mom and dad, have to make the choice, like, do we take those few minutes? Do we continue this long pregnancy just to have,
Yeah.
those few minutes, whatever? What is going through your brain when you first found out?
Well, even
Tell
worse,
us.
Liz. Even worse, like, not even worse than that, but I found out when I was in that office, they had to do an amnio, and then we had to go through this process of genetic testing that took me into 6 months pregnant. And at that 6-month mark, after the first round of genetic testing, 2 weeks later, I found out that he was pinged for 3 genetic disorders, that would be the case, that if he had one of these 3 genetic disorders, he would not, if he did survive until the end of my, time being pregnant, he would either not survive the birth or he would survive for a few minutes after birth. That it wouldn't be a viable pregnancy, essentially. And so here you are at 6 months pregnant, and you're being asked, what do you want to do? And I knew from, again, sitting with pain, uh, in that moment, I was just like, stay in your body. And what do I mean by that, right? Because if you've never heard that, stay in your body, what does that mean? When we get bad news, I know a lot of people have had this happen in doctor's offices where they've just blacked out and they leave the doctor's office and they're like, I have no idea what that doctor said. That is when you literally like lift up and out of your body, because what you are receiving is so traumatic and painful that it is so difficult to even stay inside your body to receive it. So I just kept saying, breathe into your feet, and I just kept breathing into and imagining that my breath is going into my toes, into my heels, into my feet, to stay in my body, to be able to process what the doctor is telling me. My husband and I decided that we were going to move forward. We did that second round of testing to learn if any of these 3 things were going to ping, right?
How was
We
Ryan
wanted to
taking it? How was he taking it? Like, were you crying at this point? Was he crying? Were you crying together? Were you
no,
guys
we were
on
both
separate
in
pages?
shock. We were both in shock. And, Ryan and I think that's one of the hardest things of going through a health crisis with your significant other, is how you both process really hard things. And I'm going to be very honest about what we went through, because I know it will be very helpful to somebody listening. Because as a mom, especially when it's your child, something wakes up inside of you. At least this was my experience, and this has been experience of other moms that I've spoken to. You become, it's like that prehistoric brain, that survival brain. It's like it takes over, and you become a warrior, like a mama bear. And it is like you're a lion who just has a baby cub, and you are out in the middle of the African whatever, and you will protect that child at any cost, even if it means like killing everyone, including your husband. You literally, like, it's like, this is my job. And so for me, because my brain was hardwired for trauma and crisis and being 10 steps ahead, I was the perfect mother for this moment. I was the perfect mom for this moment. I jumped into action, right? I got to meet with the doctors. I need to do my research. I need to figure out the best place to go. I need to, all of that. And I think for Ryan, it just was so all-consuming to his personhood. He felt so helpless, and he couldn't vocalize that to me. So what that felt like to me is abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
Just complete emotional abandonment. And I remember 6 weeks into our diagnosis with Bennett, going to him and saying, I am not going to allow you to abandon me in this situation. I booked us an appointment with a family therapist, and you will be there.
Wow.
Because if you're going to be in my life, you're going to be by my side, and we're going to have to figure this out. And I know it's going to be hard, but emotionally abandoning me in this moment in time, this ain't it, buddy. We won't survive it. Our marriage will not survive it, because I also knew where I was at. Like, I will kick anyone out of my life that gets in the way of me being able to do my job to protect this child. And I'm so glad I could be present enough in my life to tell him what I needed. And he showed up, and we started that counseling together. And we needed it, man. Because let me tell you, when your baby is rolled in, your little tiny baby is like, I'll go to like when he was born, you know, we had the opportunity, luckily, to learn about his diagnosis before the first surgery. So we were able to meet with the doctors. And a lot of people know I have worked with Children's Hospital Los Angeles for 7 years now. I ran the board for 3 years, the president of the board. I'm on the Advocacy Committee, Research and Innovation Committee. I'm leading our fundraising initiative right now. I'm very, very involved with that hospital because what they do is the most extraordinary service for children. They are the 5th top specialty hospital in the world. They see the sickest of the sickest kids, including mine. And so when I met with that heart surgeon, I knew there was going to be no better place that was going to, that was the hope. Because if this doctor couldn't do it, no one could. And so Dr. Von Starnes, world-renowned, not just pediatric heart surgeon, adult heart surgeon, was the one who we went with, thank God, because Bennett was the worst case. They got in there and he had all those other 3 things, but then he also had only one coronary artery and it was in the wrong place. And it was a 7.5-hour surgery. That first surgery.
Did you even get to kiss him when he was born?
So when he was born, I'll go to that day, you know, I was prepared, right? I knew that there was a potential that if he came out and he was blue, or if there was immediate intervention that needed to happen, that I wouldn't get to hold him. He would be taken from me immediately. I gave birth with a dozen doctors and nurses scrubbed up, gloved up in the room, ready to intervene. That's a thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just your doctor, you know, my OB and my mother and my husband that are in the room, your people, but there are a dozen doctors and nurses there in the room. We were so fortunate. Then it came out and he was perfect. Outside of the fact that his heart was a heck of a mess, he was perfect. He wasn't blue. He had, you know, his fingers and his toes, and I got to hold him for a moment. And you can hear me on the camera being like, oh my gosh, he's got 10 fingers and 10 toes. And that little one wrapped his finger around my pinky and locked eyes with me. That baby knew his mission. He knew his assignment. And I swear to you, I heard him say, I got this. And you can hear me on camera going, I know you've got this, buddy. I know you got this. Like that was the connection that Bennett and I had from the moment he was in my belly. It was so deep. And they took him from me. And I had a really rough experience at this specific hospital because hospitals make a lot of money off of sick kids. And my orders had been, and this is one reason why I want to talk about this, is because when you are a caregiver to a child or any loved one, caregiver includes being an advocate. And being an advocate includes using your voice. And this is why when we liberate ourselves from the systems and institutions that keep us silent, it's not just about like in the world, and it's so much deeper than politics. It is liberating yourself internally, because when you are in a caregiving situation, you're going to have to advocate for that loved one, and you're going to come up against systems and institutions that are supposed to be there to give care and for you and for your child that are in complete opposition to what is needed.
Yep.
And what is right. And that's what happened to me in that hospital. Number one, they didn't follow. I gave them a sheet of paper that had my orders on it. They followed none of them of the procedure. I had to fight them at every turn. And I won't go into the long story about that, but the biggest one is I had said, we are going to transfer immediately to Children's Hospital. If he is stable, we are transferring immediately. Well, they would not allow me to go into the NICU to see my kid. Finally, at about 2:00 in the morning, I got myself in a wheelchair and I wheeled myself up to the NICU, where I learned that they were keeping him so that they could run a bunch of tests on him against what I had asked, against my protocol and procedure. So at that point in time, I called my pediatrician. She's like, I'll be there first thing in the morning. And she was. She was there by like 6:00 in the morning the next morning. And she stayed there until an ambulance came and picked up Bennett and picked up me. And we immediately were transferred to Children's Hospital Los Angeles. So when you have a child that is going through a health crisis, or you have a child where you are a caregiver of that child who is going through anything, whether anything from autism to cancer to heart to anything, you have got to find your voice. We got transferred to Children's Hospital. And when I tell you, I mean, he had a fever by that time. I had a fever. I was sick. I had to be masked. They had to immediately do a spinal tap to make sure that it wasn't anything serious, severe. So we landed, and those doctors and those nurses immediately went into rescue mode. I didn't get to hold him again
Mm.
until he was out of surgery. He went into surgery. His first heart surgery was at 5 days old. And here I am, masked. My child is on all of these machines that are keeping him alive. They need him to make it as long as he can before they intervene, to let his lungs, to let everything try to mature as much as possible. And he made it 5 days, and they went in at day 5. And there is nothing scarier than something happening to your child.
No.
Not one single thing on planet Earth. Even the wait, the 7.5-hour wait of that surgery, right? What do we like? Your mind, your body, you're just like, I cannot believe that this is happening. Luckily, we were so fortunate. He came out of the 7.5-hour surgery. The doctor fixed all.
I'm gonna make you back up. You have
Okay.
to describe what that was like. I want to know what it felt like to see him being wheeled away.
Oh,
I want to
okay.
know
So
what you said to Ryan, what he said to you. Like, what are you thinking in that moment?
well,
Are
nobody
you
prepares you
already
for that.
No. Are you already in
Mm.
your head going, okay, if he dies, I guess I'll have to plan the funeral? And how big of a funeral when it's just a newborn? And what do we do about cremation or burial? Or like, are these the things you're already thinking?
No, I went into this whole thing with irrational hope. I had decided that I was going to have irrational hope. And I held on to that. I mean, truly, and not in a denial kind of way. I knew all the risk. I knew what could happen. I was very much aware of all of that. But in order to stay in my body, in order to stay present, I had this irrational hope in me. But nobody prepares you for that goodbye.
Mm.
And now I prepare families. I'm like, there is going to be a moment when you have to say goodbye to your child. And for us, that looked like we were already in the CTICU, and we were first up that morning. And the team of doctors came in, to take Bennett. And we followed them with his medical bed into the hallway before they take them into the doors that lead to the surgical rooms, the operating rooms. And you can hear a pen drop. They give you a moment to say goodbye. And it hit me, and that's when it hit me. Oh my gosh. Oh, they mean like because he might not come out. Oh my gosh. Like, and that that big T trauma moment was the thing that was frozen in my brain for such a long time,
Mhm.
is having to say goodbye to my 5 pound at this point, because he hadn't eaten for 5 days, 5 pound, few ounce baby that was this big on this giant medical bed that was going to be wheeled in for surgery. And what do you say? What do you know, I So I just put my forehead to his because, when your baby's attached to all these things, sometimes the forehead is the only thing available. So I have all these pictures of my forehead pressed against his, and I still do it to him today. Actually, he does it to me all the time. He presses his forehead against mine. And one time Bennett said, "Mom, why do I like to press my forehead against yours?" And I said, "Oh," and I explained to him that when he was in the hospital, I would do that all the time to him. And his body remembered, right? So I pray over him, and I tell him that I'm going to be with him and that the angels are with him. He's got an army of angels by his side, and that I'll see him when he's done. And to be strong, that he was born knowing that he would have to do this, and he can do this. And then they wheeled him in, and when those doors were shut, I just collapsed. Just collapsed into tears. And Ryan was in shock. He was crying. I was crying. And then you go in that waiting room, and then you wait. And you
And oh,
just
by the
wait.
way, you're still hormonal, and your
Oh,
milk
5
is
days
probably
after
coming
having,
in, and
yeah. Oh, my boobs. I mean, my boobs are literally a size G, like a G. And my milk is starting to come in. All crazy stuff happens down there after you give birth vaginally. All of that crazy stuff is happening. And you don't have time to take care of yourself. There's no time to take care of yourself. Even when your milk starts to come in, you're like, I got to make sure I get this out, because when he is able to feed, he's going to need this. He's going to need this. So you're just doing what you can because you feel so helpless. You can't go into that room and save his life. And so then the wait begins. Yeah.
so he comes out. The doctors
Mm-hmm.
say success. We did this.
Yes, we did it.
You feel elation, relief.
Oh my
Describe
gosh,
that.
how surgeons aren't really cuddly, feely people. I literally wrapped my entire body. I think I jumped over a couch and into the arms of the surgeon. Which to this day, when he sees me, I'm like, you better open those arms because it's coming. You better get over here. I mean, he's so brilliant and he's amazing. And yeah, he saved Bennett's life. And now it was, CTICU. Those first 3 to 5 days after heart surgery for a newborn are really touch and go. They are touch and go. And, I remember saying to Ryan, this was even a year after Bennett's first heart surgery, before we were about to go into our second heart surgery. I said, we're going into our second heart surgery, and I can still hear the beeps when I go to sleep at night. Because when you're living in a hospital, those beeps and those noises, I don't know how doctors and nurses, I think I've always had so much respect for them. But after going through what we did, I'm like, they are living with this.
Mm-hmm. All the time.
All the time. They come to a hospital and they spend 12 hours, 13 hours saving the lives of people, of children, with the beeps and the things. Imagine their nervous system and how calm they have to stay under the most extreme pressure. And then a lot of them have to go home and make dinner for their children after sometimes losing patients.
Mm-hmm.
After the hardest of the hard. I just have so much respect for our first responders and for our nurses and doctors and people in the medical world. I mean, they are not given enough credit for what they do and what they live through every day. And so then it was just keep him alive. And we had the best nurses in the world. Shout out to Paolo, who was he was by our side for those first 3 days when it was the most critical, the most dangerous. And for me as the caregiver, the most important thing that I knew was that I had to stay in my body at every single second and also take it. Sometimes I was like, I just have to get to the next minute, or I just need to get to the next
Did you
10
stay
minutes.
awake for like 3 days straight? I
Of
mean, did you sleep at
course. Of
all?
course. No, not for those first 3 days because he was so fragile, and it was so scary that there was no sleeping for those first 3 days at all. And especially because I trusted Paolo so much. When those night nurses come in, right? You're like, oh, wait, are they going to be as good as the day person? Are we going to so in the beginning, when you're just getting used to the team and the nurses and all the things, like, you don't want to miss anything. And so I would stay awake. It was, I would just lay there, but I was always listening and watching, and they'd come in and I'd get up and and also babies are supposed to be held when they're born. He had just been violated in the most egregious of ways. His body, literally his chest cut open. And I wanted him to know that I was there. And yes, it was to save his life, but his little body doesn't know that. So
Right.
I just wanted to be by his side at every point that I could and stay in my body so that I could be present to everything that was happening, at every moment. I took notes. Every time they gave him medication, I would go, what was that? And I would write down the medication and the dose and what time. I would have copious notes about everything that was happening all throughout the day. And by the way, weeks into it, I was doing the rounds with the doctors. The nurses would be like, you got this, right? And I'd be like, I got this. And the doctors would do their rounds, and I would be like, okay, so Bennett at about 7:33 this morning had and I would start doing the rounds. But that's because caregiving for a child, just like caregiving for a loved one with Alzheimer's, in moments in time on those journeys, it requires you to be 2 feet on the ground, fully in your body, right there by them. You know that going through it with your mother, especially at the very end, right? Like the being right there and knowing all the things, because sometimes our healthcare providers, no matter how good, they make mistakes. Sometimes, especially with when it comes to Alzheimer's and dementia, there's so little education around it that they're trying to make decisions that are actually completely in opposition to what your loved one needs. So that's why you and I focus so much on this about learning how to be an advocate for your loved one.
Right.
I'll wrap it up by saying we were in the hospital for about a month. We finally got to go home. He was on oxygen because he also had on top of it a respiratory or pulmonary actually situation where when he would go to sleep, his oxygen would completely collapse. And it wasn't until we got him home, and because of who I am, I would not let it go. I was like, their pulmonary division could not figure out, and I will say, listen, I was pretty upset. Why can't you figure out what's going on with my kid and why his oxygen's collapsing? Again, not every medical institution is perfect. And I diagnosed him. I called the hospital. I said, I'm going to need to come in and I'm going to need you guys to scope him because I think he has something called laryngomalacia. And that's why his oxygen is collapsing when he sleeps. I took him in. ENT scoped him. Sure enough, that's what he had. So he was on oxygen for about 8 months until the flaps of his, like when you go to sleep, those flaps go like this, and his would just lay flat instead of opening and closing and opening and closing. And sometimes just with maturity that goes away. And luckily for Bennett, he didn't have to have an extra surgery for that. As he grew up, it went away. But it was 8 months of oxygen, carrying around oxygen tanks, like hooking him up to a giant oxygen machine, when he slept. When he got big enough to move around, he would like wrap that thing around his neck. He would pull on it. He would rip it out. So for about 8 months, I did not sleep at all. At all. Because one night when we had moved him into the other room to try and get some sleep, I was dead asleep, and all of a sudden it was like somebody pushed me awake. I just went... decided to go in there and check in on him, and he had wrapped that cord around his neck.
Oh, gosh.
So then the baby got rolled back into our room, and I slept with one hand on his body and one eye open for like 8 months until he got off that oxygen because he could move.
When was his, I mean, this is just all like,
It's
heard it
crazy.
in pieces so many times, but never like, for a full hour and a half of like, take me through every single step, because I feel like I've like walked it with you. You've done such a good job of
Yeah.
explaining it. When did you realize that he had the pulmonary embolism?
Oh, so we had actually gone in to get
How old was
an
he?
echocardiogram. He was almost close to a year. We had gone in to get an echocardiogram on his heart. His heart looked great. It was the first time we had gotten like, heart is actually looking really good kind of thing. I was like, great. And then about a month into that, I start noticing a difference in his breath. He's struggling a little bit more with his breath. His coloring around his mouth, it's starting to get a little bit more blue. He has this like, his veins are really like, you can see them right here in him. And, they were like very prominent. And I was like, something's going on. And I could actually feel it in my own body because I like can do that.
Because you're a mother. Mothers just
I'm,
know. We always
yeah,
know.
I could feel it in my body. And when I would close my eyes and try to connect, it felt like I just kept seeing a balloon, like expanding, 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 expanding. So then I said to my husband, he said, I have PTSD. That's my cat. I'm sorry. I said to my husband, who was like, you're overreacting. You probably have PTSD. I said, yeah, that's probably true. And also something's going on.
Like,
and
no
my
shit,
doctor,
Sherlock.
yeah, my doctor was like, you're probably just experiencing PTSD. We just checked the heart. The heart looked good. So I had all these people in my life that were saying, you're overreacting. You have PTSD. Nothing's wrong with the heart. And I said, I don't care if I have to pay for an extra echocardiogram out of my own pocket. We will do it, but you're going to check that heart again. And sure enough, he had a giant aneurysm in his pulmonary artery that required immediate intervention. So that's when we had his second open heart surgery. Yeah. So listen.
Was that also life-threatening? Like, could he have died in that surgery?
So yeah, the doctor came out same surgeon came out after the heart surgery and said, this baby has angels, quote, has angels looking out for him, because the fact that did not explode, he said it was giant. And he goes, if that thing would have ruptured, it would have killed him instantly. And
did the doctor who told you didn't need another echocardiogram, did they apologize? Were they like, we're so sorry?
Well, I did have that conversation. And so she knows now when I say, I want you to check something, I need you to, she's like, absolutely. Absolutely.
And would you like me to stand on my head while I do that, Mrs. DeLoach? I'll be happy to.
And I'll also say, by the way, like, this is why I tell people, listen to your gut. this was
Mhm.
such a great exercise in not caring about what people thought of me. I didn't care what my husband thought about me. I didn't care what the doctors thought about me. I didn't care about what the rest of my family thought about me in protection of my child. I did not care. I was willing to lose everyone in my life to do what I knew was right. And my God, I'm so grateful for it, because that awakening in me serves me today. Like I say, I
Mhm.
don't need you to like me. I don't need to be liked.
Mhm.
Right? Like, I just don't. And part of that is because I'm going to do the right thing no matter what. And for my child, it was, you're going to check his heart. And I was right. And so, like, at the risk of being crazy, at the risk of being liked, at the risk of whatever, it is so important to do the right thing and to listen to your intuition and to listen to your gut. The what is going to happen? They check it and the heart's fine and they're like, "Oh, she's a little crazy." Fine.
Yeah.
Call me crazy.
I
But
mean,
the
Nikki,
opposite of that would have been absolutely
death.
horrific. It would have been
Right.
death. Yeah.
I mean, listeners, like, I can remember telling my mom's care team 1 month before she died, "She's dying. I think she's dying." You even said from across the country, not
I
even laying
did.
eyes on her, just based on what I was telling you, "Liz,
I
she's
was
dying."
like, she's dying.
Not that I didn't even know it intrinsically, right? Like, I'm her only daughter. We've been insanely close, my whole
But
life.
they were
I
telling
knew.
you that
You
they
don't
were
think I
telling
know
you.
when she's letting go? That's
Yeah.
insane. Of course I knew.
Insane.
And they're just saying, "Oh, she's just depressed. No, we just need time to get her medication under control." Literally, one person laughed at me when I asked if I should start getting her Ensure drinks because she was no longer eating. And I was like, shouldn't I be giving her like protein drinks or something? Like, even I was like, this is weird. And they laughed at
Yeah.
me. So, oh, that's
Yeah.
not, I mean, you can if you want. I mean, just what you want, right? From your care team. You can if you want, but
Yeah. But
you're
it
up Schitt's
happens all
Creek
the time. It happens all the
all the
time,
time.
which is why I say to people, look crazy if you have to. Do whatever you have to do. You are not in this world. That's the difference between being nice and being good.
Hmm.
That is the difference right there. I am not going to not follow my gut and not follow my intuition and not do the right thing that I need to do to protect my child or my loved one that I'm giving care to, just because you might think that I'm a little unhinged or a little crazy or like, I
Who
like,
cares?
who
Who
cares?
cares? Like, by the end, I was so freaking, like, I could have cared less what any one of those nurses said to me, did to me. Now, granted, for like 3 months before that, I was just walking around there on eggshells, just hoping I didn't get kicked out again. And like bringing
Mm-hmm.
them donuts and kissing ass. And like, I can remember bringing my friends up there even and like to almost like parade them and be like, see, I'm not crazy. I have really cute, nice friends and they're all really normal. Like, see me, like me, not
But then
weird, you
something
know?
happens. But then something
And
happens.
then, no, fuck that. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
out for blood almost. I was just like, I
Yeah.
mean, I remember them like, "Oh, do you want sandwiches?" And they were like trying to bring my kids ice cream. And I was like, you know what I want? I want you to get the fuck out of this room and just let me be with my mom while she dies now. That's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it was so freeing to finally just like, I mean, I was never rude. I didn't actually say that to anyone, but like, I think where we get into so much trouble as caregivers is we care too much about having these doctors and nurses like us or wanting to come off like kind or respectful or whatever. And you do because these are really important people doing important work. But
Mm-hmm.
when you sacrifice the health of your loved one and what you
That's
know
it.
to be right just because you're trying to keep the peace, like, who cares at that point? Like, I'm the most, and we said this on the last podcast, like, I am someone who intrinsically cares a lot about what other people's opinions of me. Like, it's my worst nightmare for somebody to be mad at me for something. And that's just going to be my life's work to constantly get over that, you know? And I think that I struggled with towing this line of just
Mm.
wanting to keep the peace and have them all, "Oh, hi, Liz. How are you? Oh, you're cute kids." The minute I crossed them and started disagreeing and started ruffling feathers and started calling them out on, like, things that weren't getting done and bad things that were
Horrible
happening,
things. Yeah.
I became the enemy, right? And so,
Mhm.
but this happens a ton. And you're
Mhm.
so afraid of these doctors, making bad calls or, getting on their bad side or getting on these nurses' bad side because they're,
Mhm.
especially if your loved one is in a care home or whatever, you don't want them
Mhm.
to, like, not take care of your loved one adequately because they're pissed at you. This is like a real thing people deal with. And I think people get very afraid to sort of put their foot down. And especially if you're not assertive in general in life, if you're just a
Mhm.
kind of a more passive person, which I tend to be, not so much anymore. I've gotten really good at it recently in the last few years, especially your friendship has helped me really. I mean, that's what I meant by learning so much from you.
Oh,
You've taught
thank
me
you.
so much. So,
Thank you.
so
But
much. I
there's
don't think you
but
realize
there's
how much you do
uh
that for people, but also trauma does that for you. And
trauma does it for you. If you let trauma do its job, like it
you're a
does it for
badass
you.
afterwards.
You
Yeah.
are. And here's what I do want to also make clear. Clear is kind. There is a way to advocate without having to, there are moments, yes, when when I gave birth at that one hospital before being transferred, there was some yelling that had to happen. Yes, because I wasn't being heard and I wasn't being listened to, and they were defying my rights as a parent, as somebody giving birth in their hospital. They were completely ignoring me. And so I did have to get loud. But when it came to Bennett and our care team, right? When I say that clear is kind, it's like, I understand that you feel that way. And also, I want you to check it again. Thank you
Hmm.
so much. And if you make it clear that you are asking for something for your loved one, they will not deny you, because if something ends up happening, you could sue them. So if you ask for the thing that you need, I want an MRI, I want a CAT scan, I want an echocardiogram, and they know that if you are asking for these specific things, and if they push back on you in the beginning and then you push back and they continue to push back, you can make it very clear. Listen, I think we both are on the same team here, right? We're all on the same team, which is to make sure that we are taking care of the health and well-being of this person, this loved one, this child. And I think both of us don't want anything to happen to this person, especially in your watch and under your care. So I think in this moment in time, the best decision to be made is for you to check it again. And if you make that clear, they're going to check it again. Because if something ends up happening to your loved one, they get
It
in
goes back on
big,
them.
serious trouble over that. So that's what I mean. You don't have to get loud. You just have to be very clear about what you are asking for. And if you know in your gut that it is something that needs to happen, do
But
not
I,
back
and
down.
I'm here to
Hold the
tell you though,
line.
guys, like the sad thing is you don't have to go scorched earth to get your point across. That's true.
You don't.
But sometimes,
You do.
sometimes they still ignore you. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, that happens. It just does. And you just have to you have to be able to protect your loved one as much as possible and also understand that you're not always going to win. And
Mm-mm.
sometimes bad things do happen, and it's kind of all part of the process. It's not a perfect system. Doctors aren't perfect, nurses aren't perfect. And I will say,
Mm-mm.
I was so upset with the way that they were administering my mom's pain medication at the end. But the truth is, nurses in care facilities are not trained adequately in end of life. So oftentimes they're very afraid of being the one that gives that like last dose of morphine, right? They're afraid
Oh,
of killing a
yes.
patient. And that's a legitimate fear on their part. And so, you do have to give grace. And it's all really tough, guys. We have a lot more to talk to you about this because we're about to get into Nikki's dad on the second half. And, advocating for a parent is a completely different bag of chips.
Mm-hmm.
It it requires different tools than caring for a child, but also it's not so dissimilar because, as she said, if you're talking about somebody who can't advocate for themselves, you really do have to be in that driver's seat, and you got to be wide awake with a cup of coffee in your hand because it requires everything from you. So I
Yeah.
can't wait to get into that. Just want to say again how proud I am of you for being able to tell that story with so much grace and with
Thank you,
so
honey.
much just strength. I
Thanks,
mean,
honey.
it doesn't surprise me about you at all, but sometimes I truly do just like marvel at the number of things that you've gone through and just how amazing of a person you are to have handled them in the ways that you did. I mean, so many other people could have just fallen apart and stayed falling apart and stayed crying or in that ball on the floor permanently, even after the baby comes home from the hospital,
Oh my
and you
gosh.
didn't. You got up. And I'm not saying you didn't have your moments on the kitchen floor and all the things that I know about, but I mean, honey, you did it. You did
Thank
it.
you. Thank
And I mean,
you. I
that child
appreciate
is
that.
alive. He is alive and driving you nuts to this day because of you.
Well,
So,
I will just say really quick before we go, to speak to that, I think because I was victimized in my childhood, I was so determined not to be a victim of my circumstances as an adult, right?
mm,
I think
see,
it's
that's what
so
I mean. That's what I mean with those little tiny tidbits. You just drop them like they're these like a feather falling down, but really it's like a brick that hits you in the face. That's
well,
amazing. Say it again.
think
Say it again.
because I was victimized as a child, I was so determined not to be a victim of my life as an adult. And because
I'm
because
sorry. So good.
victimization, thank you, because victimization, when we make ourselves victims too, and we can do it in any way, right? My boss, or my this, or my that, or I'm going through this and I'm a victim. Like, there's a lot of victimization happening in our society. I'm a victim to this, I'm a victim to that. And it keeps us stuck and paralyzed. It keeps
Mhm,
us unable to step into action, right? So
mhm.
that's why I say to people, if you are mad, if you are sad, if you are grieving, and you don't know what to do with your emotions and everything that you're going through, volunteer. Put
Yeah,
one foot in
go do
front of the
something.
other. Go do
Go do.
something. Give back. And a part of being able to stand still and process, and like you said, be able to stay intact going through all of that, was that when I learned about the mission of Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and that every child who came through that door, regardless of their insurance, regardless of the money that they had in their pocket, their lives would be saved in the same way that my Bennett's would be saved. I was like, I want to make sure that I am a part of that mission for the rest of my life, because no parent should ever have to decide between getting the care and the help they need for their children and going into bankruptcy, or not
No.
even receiving that care because they don't have the money to do it. And
Or
so
because they're so
I
afraid to seek it out.
or because they're afraid to seek it out. And so for me, it was like, I'm just going to take all of that pain and start showing up and going, how can I help? How can I be of service? I want to be a part of this, and so I say that to people. It gets you when you stay a victim, it keeps you stuck and
Mhm.
unable to move forward in your life. But when you are able to go, you know what? This happened. I am no different from anybody else, because
It's the
bad
truth.
things, hard things are happening to people every single day. And why not me? Why not me?
Right.
Right? Why not my kid, my
We're not
family?
we're not special.
No. So I could stay stuck in that, or I could go, okay, this baby, I am in charge of this baby now. I have to keep this baby alive, and I'm going to do everything in my power, and not just for this baby, but every other baby that goes into that hospital, because all the children are ours. Like Glennon says, there's no such thing as other people's children.
And guys, if you think she's annoyingly perky and happy, which I often do, uh, I will just tell you, not only did she do that, but then her dad dies of Alzheimer's and she takes a
Mhm.
DM from a total quack job on Instagram. And now she's found herself with, someone that she's stuck with for the rest of her life, and she's on the board of Mind What Matters. So
I'm
she
so lucky.
didn't just spring into action on LA Children's Hospital in honor of Bennett. She sprang into action with Mind What Matters for Alzheimer's. So
My
I'm
life
just
is
saying,
better because of it.
well, mine's certainly
Because of
better
you.
because of it, but I don't know who can say that about me. I'm a first class ticket on the Hot Mess Express over here. But and speaking of children coming through doors, there's going to be 3 of them walking through this door of this very tiny Airbnb. If I don't get these kids out on the beach, it's supposed to now. We are getting warnings for power outages at the beach in Florida.
Oh my gosh.
As if Murphy's Law is not just coming back to haunt me enough. But I've got 3 more hours of daylight here. Then I'm going to try and run them on the beach to get energy out before we are locked inside here. Still waiting on power in Nashville. So
you guys get out in your
you.
communities. Get out in your communities. Whatever you can do. If you don't have money, show up and sit with somebody. Make sure that they get to where they need to get. Check in on a friend. However you can show up for your community. Thank you so much for listening to this. And if you are a caregiver caring for a child right now and you need a support group, we have one. Join our support group. We're here for you and we love you. And I love you so much, Liz. And thank you for listening.
See, you just thought that you were going to get off easy. You can't go and ask me questions like you did last week and the week before without getting some juicies. So payback, sister. You did a beautiful job. I'm so proud of you. So proud to be your friend. I'm so proud to walk in this life as witness to the incredible work that you do. And I just love you so much. I'm really proud of this conversation and proud of our podcast. This thing is I think it's actually helping a few people. It's pretty great.
It is. I hear it all the time from people. Thank you for your feedback and thank you for listening. And we said when we started, if we just help one person, then it's worth it. And I think it's more than one person. And I'm really proud of it too.
I'm down at the beach, right? I'm 7 hours from Nashville. And I met a girl at the restaurant we had dinner at a couple nights ago. And she goes, your voice sounds really familiar. And then somehow down the line, it turns out her dad has Alzheimer's. Yeah. Or no, her mom. And she's like, wait, do you have the Mind What Matters? Are you the Mind What Matters podcast? And little Hunter was standing with me. And I think he wanted to be buried, it was the most mortifying moment of his life. And I was like, yes, I am. And, of course, later he was like, I hate to tell you this, but that in the list of celebrity, you're negative Z on.
No, you are not.
He's
Listen,
like, don't think that makes you cool, Mom. I was like, don't worry, buddy.
Celebrity.
Who cares? But still, that's pretty cool that somebody knew about us.
Cool.
We're spreading.
That's so
guys,
cool.
also, here's a quick plug. Please. Seriously, help us grow a little bit. Maybe Summer's Eve Douche will sponsor Nikki and I one day.
You know what? We will know that we have arrived when Summer's Eve Douche is supporting our podcast.
I can't.
With that being said, we love you guys. We'll be back next week.
We're going to close it out again on douching, guys.
We love ya.